Hi guys, it's Sandy with Sandy Cogdell Designs, and I am so excited to share this card that I made with the ice cream gnomes from Simon Says Stamp. It is the collaboration with Trinity Stamps that released today as part of STAMPTEMBER. This is such a fun month for card makers with all the different collaborations. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Hit subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdell or on my blog, sandycogdelldesigns.com. Let's get started. Okay, this is the stamp set. It's called Ice Cream Gnomes. The first sentiment is there's no one sweeter than you. The second one, it's an extra sprinkles kind of day. Then, of course, happy birthday and make a wish. This little gnome is adorable with the little cake on his head. And then this little guy is almost like a cupcake. He could be used for that. And then my favorite one is this little melting guy that's just an ice cream cone that looks like it's fallen over. I also have the dies that coordinate with this stamp set. All right, for this card, I'm going to start with my background. I have got a piece of cardstock that is cut 6 by 6. I haven't decided yet at this point in the process whether I'm going to make a landscape or a portrait card. So I'm just going to put my Distress Oxide ink pretty much along the top of it and down. At this point, I go down about halfway, but I do add a little bit later just because I then did decide to do the landscape and I needed just a little bit more sky. So I'm going to take this Distressed Oxide and I'm going to start with a very light coat up at the top and just kind of work my way down and across this cardstock. I don't know if you guys have tried the new Blending Buddies from Trinity Stamps. It's one of my new favorite tools. I find it really easy to hang on to. The wide surface or bristle surface, it's just so easy to blend with them. So if you haven't tried those, you might want to give it a try. Again, I'm just going to blend my ink about, well, at this point, just halfway down, but we're going to add a little bit more a little bit later. Now that I've got that inked, I'm still not quite sure whether I'm doing a landscape or portrait. I do want to make my clouds look like the top of an ice cream cone. So I am going to take the little layered ice cream cone stencil and I'm going to place it on top of the tumbled glass area that I've inked. I'm going to use a die that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 just to kind of help me with the placement of where I would want that first or the middle ice cream cloud to go. And I'm going to just take a bit of white pigment ink and I am going to blend my ink in that area. I am not a fan of white pigment ink. It's so thick compared to everything else, but it is just perfect for this card. My biggest tip is just not to overload your bristles, your brush, because it'll kind of collect in the corners of your stencil. And I kind of wipe mine, to get that off, and it's not, real harsh lines. But I would just be really careful as you are blending those clouds in. And now I'm going to work on my sandy area. As you can tell, I added a little bit more of the Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink. I just felt like it ended too far up, and I was definitely at this point going to do a landscape card. So I'm going to take some tea dye Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to lightly blend it in at the bottom. I'm not paying too much attention to where the blue and the tan meet. Even if there's a little bit of white in that area, it kind of helps create that horizon line. To continue my ice cream theme through my card, I thought it would be really cute to put some sprinkles in the sand. So I'm going to use the Layered Confetti and Ribbons stencil. And I'm going to use a little bit of saltwater taffy, excuse me, Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just going to lay those in to my sand. I am going to kind of tape off the top of my stencil just because I just get so carried away blending in my stencil that I tend not to pay attention to where it's going, and I don't want any of those sprinkles up into that sky that I've been working on. This is actually a 2-layer set, so I am going to take the other layer. I'm going to go ahead and mask that off like I did the other one, because I am very messy when I get to stenciling and blending. And I'm going to use Ripe Persimmon Distress Oxide ink to lay in some more of my little ice cream sprinkles. And for my final layer, I'm going to go back to that first stencil that I used after I've cleaned it off. And I'm just going to kind of reposition it to make sure that I'm not going in the exact same spot that I did the first layer, and that I'm not overlapping too many of the little sprinkles. For this color, I am using the Salvaged Patina. I've got my sandy area done. Now I want to go ahead and finish up my little ice cream clouds. So I'm going to go back to my little layered ice cream cone stencil, and I'm going to use the part of the stencil that's actually the shading of the ice cream. I'm going to place that over the top of my white pigment ink, and I'm just going to go back in with tumbled glass and just blend over that. I'm actually pressing a little bit harder than when I did the sky part, just because I want to make sure that there is some definition and the clouds do look like a little ice cream scoop. I'm going to go ahead and do that on all 3 of those clouds that I've laid in there. I'm still not sure exactly where I'm going to be cutting this card. I do know it's landscape, and I will be cutting it to 4 inches by 5 1/4 because I do want a nice little background edge around the whole card. Oh my goodness, I just love the way these little clouds turned out. I had thought about speckling my sky with a little bit of watered down ink, but I was afraid I was going to mess up my little ice cream scoops, so I just left well enough alone. Sometimes I fix things until they're broken. And this is my final background. I am going to set that to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on my little melting ice cream cone. Since we've only got one image on this card, this is going to be a pretty quick color. I am using Express It blending card. That's just what I've used for years. It's a little bit expensive, but for me it just works best. I find that I can do blending much better on it. I'm using Copic markers, and for my gnome's little nose I am using R00 and R30. The actual ice cream part, I decided he needed to be strawberry or she needed to be strawberry, could be either or. And I am using RV00 and RV23. My cone is let me look at my notes, E53, E33, and E99. And then a little, I'm not sure what they are that stick out from the side, if they're straws or little pieces of candy. I've used BG01, BG45, and Y15 and YR16. I have got him all colored in, so I'm going to use the coordinating dies and tape that on my image, run it through my die cutter, and then we're going to move on to embossing the sentiment. I've cut my background to 4 inches by 5 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and place it in my MISTI, and then I just kind of play around with my image and my sentiments and where I want that. I have not glued down my little ice cream cone yet. I'm just making sure that I have everything where I want it to be. I will first heat emboss the happy birthday sentiment, and then I will go back and do the sentiment at the lower part of my card. I just didn't want to try to do both of them at the same time because it would be just heartbreaking to destroy my background at this part. I'm going to add a few highlights using a number 10 gel pen, and I'm just going to kind of go around the cone and around the little ice cream. I am not the best gel pen white highlighter person in the world. That is one thing I have struggled with forever, but I keep figuring if I keep working on it, it can only get better. Now I have a piece of coordinating cardstock that is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. I am going to score it at 4 1/4 and fold it in half. I'm going to adhere the front of my card to my card base. I'm going to use liquid glue to do that. I am a liquid glue kind of girl. I have had problems with the double-sided adhesive or the adhesive tape in the past, and I just don't want the front of my card falling off. Also, using liquid glue gives me just a little bit of time to kind of zhuzh things around and make sure that I'm lined up exactly where I want to be. On the front of my card, I have also adhered some little bits and pieces, some little sprinkles, and that to kind of carry through that ice cream theme to the front of my card. For the inside of my card, I have a piece of white cardstock that I have cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4. I have stamped the sentiment, "There's no one sweeter than you," on that piece of card, and I'll just go ahead and use my liquid glue to adhere that to the inside of the card. And to wrap up this card, I'm going to put some little foam squares on the back of my ice cream cone just to pop it up just a little bit and give my card a little bit of dimension. I think he turned out just adorable. I love the ice cream cone clouds, and I love the stamp set. Trinity Stamps always has my favorite gnomes. There's just something about them that I just absolutely love. Thank you so much for stopping by today and following along in this card making process. I hope you were able to get your hands on this adorable little stamp set. If not, maybe you can use these ice cream clouds in another project. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. You can also subscribe to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdell or on my blog, sandycogdelldesigns.com. Thanks so much and have a fantastic Stamptember. Bye-bye.